Hey everybody, how's it? Aloha, this is Geebz here, your old composer here at the Decomposer Lounge, pulling back the layers and dissecting Mastodon here on my slow burn session here at the Decomposer Lounge. This is my long form show. Real quick, before I get going, most of you who do sit through these long form shows, are you like doing it in your car or something of that nature? Are you chilling out like after? I'm kind of curious because this is a long sit, and if you're a dedicated fan of any of the bands that I've done, and you're sitting through this, I'm just kind of curious on, where are you comforting, man? Where are you chilling out and having your whiskey or whatever, your gummy bears, while you enjoy the show? Anyhow, speaking of which, I want to thank everybody at Patreon. They are my executive producers there, helping me with my suggestions here. For Mastodon, now I know that they are one of my top 5 on this journey on the channel, prog rock bands with quite the legacy of music. I'm going to do 5 songs today. 2 of them are from one album, and I normally don't do that, but they were so heavily suggested I couldn't ignore it. So I decided to add one more and make it 5. So enjoy, smoke them if you got them. Everybody relax. We're going to do this thing. We might not be relaxed afterwards because I'm expecting some pretty heavy proggy work from Mastodon. Also, you can take a look at the chapters. If you just want to skip around, those chapters will be there for you as well. And like usual, thank you so much for your support. That really means a lot. If you want to help me out on this show, be an executive producer, go ahead and check out my Patreon. You can join there for 1 month and just scoop up all the goodness that's on that channel and help me out. Help me out with 4 shows. 1 month, that means 1 show a week. You can help me out choosing songs for the slow burns coming up. All right, guys, let's do this. We're going to be starting our very first song here from Mastodon. See, I'm reading it and trying to speak at the same time. So my very first song is Megalodon from Mastodon, and this is from 2004. So let's do this. Kick back, chill. Here we go. All right. This is as raw and progressive rock as it gets, as far as I'm concerned, as far as pushing the limits. And what I mean by that is when I talk about the raw power of this kind of progressive rock composition is the fact that they are really punchy in the throat with their tones, you know. And the tones and mixing could change a prog project in so many different ways. I mean, if you were to add ambience into this with a little delay and, you know, drop the tones differently, the drums are a little sunk behind. If you just change the mix and stuff, it becomes a different song. It's even if it's the same exact tracks. And the way Mastodon goes about it is just this really visceral, gut-punching, raw power and sound. At the very beginning, they were doing a really super cool series of little turnarounds in the riff that they were playing. But you know what I really loved, and you saw me doing this, is the bass line is not doing anything, or at least through that section, there wasn't anything in unison going on there, so he wasn't following along. He was staying along in the rhythmical aspect of the arrangement, but had his own different trajectory in the notes that he was playing. So it was a very unique combo of you're not going to say harmonies, but these melodic arrangements and stuff where the bass carried its own melodic arrangement behind the riffage that was going on in the background. The drummer is absolutely mad crazy. I love the sound of this. Like I said, the sound of it just sounds real raw and organic. It's not overly processed. It's not tricked out in the mix and stuff. The vocals, you know, obviously I'm not reading any lyrics or anything like that, but the vocals are really super intense, but intervallically or melodically is staying kind of in a very mellow pocket, if you would. You know, and there is a lot of arrangement unison that's going on with that, with what he's singing, very tight to what the drums and stuff were playing, or the rest of the musicians, at least in the last 40 seconds of what I heard. But I just love this. This is prog rock. I would say this is prog fusion rock, in my opinion. But you know, that's my opinion. Let's go. You know what it fully reminded me of? I started getting all these kind of vibes of ELO, Edgar Winter, Rush, you know, kind of, you know, all kind of moshed in there, and you know, but there's in certain parts of the arrangements. Then there was that one little funky turnaround they did where I thought they were going to do this little quick ode to country. Did you catch that? Like in that turnaround, you probably saw my face kind of, you know, a little bit. And then one other thing I want to mention about this is where the vocals are in the mix. Now, you know, I've come to learn to enjoy the sonic colors of the growling or the screaming or the heavier vocal performances and stuff like that, and how well they play such an important role in a lot of the music that I've heard on this channel. But sometimes what makes or breaks it for me And doesn't mean I like it all the time, in the sense that where I get turned on or turned off by it has to do with the mix and where it's placed in the mix. You know, so if it's over the top and it's battling with the guitars and stuff like that, it kind of takes away a little bit. That'll be like the rub for me, and I'll be like, eh. But in this case, this is really nice, and a nice little pocket they formed for it in the engineering. I will say that the more powerful aspect of the mix was the guitars. You know, the guitars was really out in your face, and a very dry mix too. If you notice that, it was very dry. Didn't seem like there was any amount of ambient or any additional, maybe except for what was in the room, perhaps. But still, even that sounds very clean. And even the overheads on the drums also had a very clean, short, ambient kind of vibe to it. You know, so this was not a overly in the mixing session adding stuff to make it more than it was, because it was already super powerful. And what I also loved about this is there was no additional layering. Meaning, like, there weren't, like, you know, a little guitar part and a little something else here and a little something else here. This was the band just killing it. Yeah. All right, guys, let's move it on. The next one that I got going on here, this is going to be, let's see, what am I going to do here? The Tsar, okay, and this is coming from their 2009 Crack the Sky album. So let's do this. This is song number 2 from my slow burn here. This is Mastodon from the album Crack the Sky 2009. The Tsar. All right. All right, before we get into this next section here, it looks like from the title, this is probably broken down into three, or actually four, maybe little mini sections within this track. Maybe that's why it's as long as it is. Okay, briefly, I want to start with, that was just a nice little creepy, old school organ sound that they had going on there that I really liked. And it was kind of in a rubato kind of way. So in other words, it didn't have like a really set tempo. I mean, you kind of felt where the tempo was, but there was a little bit of clamming around in there that kind of left you kind of meandering on where it was going to go. And what I loved about that sound, it was kind of in the middle, kind of a mono sound with very light ambience or something to it, like a room reverb, but even a mono room reverb. Then we get the guitar that comes in on the left-hand side. And another engineering thing that I loved, first of all, the arpeggiation is kind of tug and war and dark and haunty, but, you know, it's got kind of an air of like possibilities, if you know, in the theater of the mind kind of way. But what I loved is you have this dry sound of the guitar on this side, but the reverb and the digital delay, the extra ambience that the engineer added to it was on this side. So without having to double it or anything like that, it gives this very unique kind of setup, where as an engineer myself, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to end up filling this side with another arrangement soon. But they gave us enough time. This is what I love about this first 3.5 minutes, is that gave me enough time to kind of sit into their pattern that they were doing, except for those really trippy chord changes that came around that really did kind of jerk me around, jerk me around right through here. That's where you can see me kind of like, where are they going to go with this, you know? So then they do start adding the layers, and another guitar starts to come in here and answer back a little bit, has its own arrangement. Against this one, it wasn't identical. And then you start to hear the bass is starting to, once again, meandering with his own melody and stuff that actually the vocals at certain time was in unison with. Going back into the mix, what's really unique about what I just heard too is that actually there were some periods where the bass actually was a little warmer, a little hotter in the mix than the vocals. You know, but the vocals again are pocketed very uniquely and very well here. I don't know if this is the methodology of what Mastodon wants their mixes to be like. I don't know enough of their discography to pick it out, but maybe by the end of this I will. But I love the fact that once again the vocals are down in this pocket, and then they start building up with the layers. I could have swore there might have been some additional overdubs on this one. Now you notice how this one has a completely different sound than the first track that we heard. Now we're a little more ambient. Now we're, you know, a little bit more in that storytelling, ethereal prog kind of vibe. But it sounds like we're about to speed it up and kick ass and take no hostages here. So let's see what we got. Okay, maybe this is another section coming in out of this song. I can't help but just pull in some more influences from that 70s kind of an Aussie, deep purpley kind of vibe that's in there. I think what's really hitting me, impacting me, is the rawness of the tones, that they just stick to the organic power of what rock is. And this is not, I'm not throwing shade on all the new progressive, the last 15 years of the new guitar tones and the incredible performances of the musicians and stuff like that. But there's just something about, it just really sounds like these guys went in the studio and lit one off, and they're playing it all the way through. Something else that I love about this little passage that I just was listening to, was the fact that it sounds like, and I've done this before as an engineer, is that even if I'm playing or I'm having somebody play a part that I know I'm going to double, you might do something like just maybe change the cabinet, which is, for non-musicians, it's the set of speakers. There's a head where you can plug something in and you can get your sounds from, and then the cabinet, it's a series of speakers, and each series of speakers has its own sounds. But even if it's an identical line, I might go ahead and say, okay, let's go ahead and put this through another cabinet just so I can get a different kind of a sound to it. And it sounds like that's what they did here. It sounds like, but I can't be sure. But I loved it because of the separation is a lot more broad, the left and right with what's going on. So they are playing two passes and some really nice, little harmonics and answer back harmonies that are going on with that. And once again, the warmth and the thickness of the bass is just so powerful in this. And it's such an important part. These guys, what I love about what I'm hearing is that these guys are equally yoked in the power of the performance through the mix. One is not ducked under the other or something like that. It's just like they're all hitting you through here. And the drummer, I just love the fills of the drummer, man. He is just got such creative little fills, especially the ones that, those kind of, where he's rolling into some of his, more powerful parts of his fills and stuff like that. And I love that kind of stuff, those kind of nuances. Okay, let's continue. What a great ending. Now, first of all, I don't know if this came in from another song. I did notice a kind of an odd start to it, and it sounds like this is probably going into another one, which is probably the case. Check me if I'm wrong on that one. What I want to talk about here that I haven't mentioned a lot about is the vocal arrangements, at least in the last two songs. Very very fun stuff going on here. In this last section, there was octave overdub that was going on. So he's singing in there, where he's singing his principal melody. There's an identical match of that melody, but an octave lower that followed all the way through it. But there was this really super cool vocal arrangement that was a cluster of harmonies here that were probably 4 to 5 lines deep in the cluster in the amount of notes that were being used in that. And it was very tight, compact harmonies. They weren't really wide in the intervals. Very compact and stuff, so it gave it kind of a clashing, colliding kind of vibe to it, and a very unique feeling with that. With a guitar solo, you know, sometimes it's difficult for me to shut off my mind as a composer, especially when I'm doing this. And sometimes songs just all of a sudden pull me back to my visceral time of listening to music before I became a professional. You know, we're talking, you know, in the 70s, in the 80s and stuff. And that guitar solo took me all the way back to like, yeah, this is what this kind of a guitar solo for some reason just speaks to me. You know, and it's not moving around. It's not, you know, a lot of, you know, fret gymnastics going on and stuff like that. It just really ripped in the pocket and stayed really super cool in there. And I really dug that. But, anyhow, this was great. These little sections that were in there, there's 4 little mini titles here, but there seemed like there was 3 sections here, but this looks like it was probably a much bigger piece of this complete album somewhere in the story here. But I love this. I can hardly wait till the next one. Okay, so the next one is from the same, excuse me, from the same album. I'm going to be doing The Last Baron. And so I got a lot of requests on this. This was very heavily requested on my Patreon list. So let's do this. From the same album, Crack the Sky from 2009, the song The Last Baron. All right.
Losing my head, I'm busy.
All right, 13-minute song, so I'm going to keep this kind of tight. Loved how they kept the arpeggiation or the guitar playing, that really clean sound that was really punchy and bright through the whole thing. Also, I forgot to mention that in the last song too, that really nice, when I went like this and there was like, I said 3 guitars, it was really, really super cool that they had this punchy, bright, steel acoustic sound guitar going with another overdub here and then a dirty one here on that last song. And in this case, the power and the punch of it is coming in more of a bridge section, whereas where I'm really kind of hooked into it is this change where it's da 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 da, you know, that whole thing that's happening there, and the bass line that's actually just sticking with it. He's not getting too busy around doing that, and he's letting the melody really come out on this one. And this one, at least thus far, the melody is really sticking out. This is a great melody. I love the way his voice sounds in this. I don't know if he doubles his voice or if he does some kind of layering with it. It has a unique sound to it, but because it's kind of still, you know, in that little, what I'm gonna call the Mastodon vocal mix pocket. It's hard for me to pull apart, but I don't want to pull apart it too much because I'm really enjoying the music and stuff. And also something that's really super cool is that even though there's layered guitars going on here, like I said, they save the dirt for more of this really super sick riffy section that goes double time. So in other words, or not double time, standard time. So that section is like dun dun ding go back. Then they hit the other section and they're back into regular time and stuff like that, and that's where they lift it and give it some balls with the power of the guitar and stuff like that. But I love the piercing sound, if you would, of the acoustic, that steel acoustic guitar line that's going there. For me, it really helps me rhythmically cut through a little bit of some of the other arrangements they have going on to kind of fill it up. But this one, thus far, this one is more vocal melody oriented for me, the way it's standing out, you know, until that big punchy section that comes in. I think it's been twice already it's come in. Okay, what else we got? First of all, I got completely thrown off base with that turnaround there where they just went blasting off into some full-on metal fusion or rock fusion segment there. That took my brain cells for such a spin that I forgot everything I was going to say about the section before it, but thank God it kind of turned around afterwards. But that was the craziest section ever. That was as fusion pushing as you could possibly get. And probably the most pushed fusion-y track I've heard on this channel, or that little section, I think of all the songs that I've listened to that have really pushed something like that. The bass player, once again, this bass player, while there's really great rhythmical timing going on with these guys, the bass player is not following it in unison. And so he gives a different life to the bottom end of the track, which is so important, at least for me in my listening experience, is to have that conversation happening here, you know, like in the jaws and right in here, you know, the bass, the kick, drum, the relationship between the two especially is so important. And it speaks in programs. It's like it's like programming you, you know, as you're going through the listening experience. But anyhow, I'm sorry. I was going to say a few more things, but I got completely spun out of gear after I heard that middle section. It completely took me off my pattern that I was listening to. But I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll go back to it. But I'm sorry. But that's what that section just did to me. It just completely, all my neurons went, job opening. All right. Couple of things really quick. There are obviously a little bit of layering going on because I'm hearing different percussive things that are happening. Like you saw me go like this, like there was, you know, like some kind of a bell element that was there and it had tone to it. It could have been done at the same time. Maybe it was the drummer. You know, Danny from Tool, he has a propensity to be that octopusy with his limbs. Oh, and speaking of Tool, aren't there a couple of things that are happening that are kind of has that same kind of vibe? And I'm not talking about the meter, you know, switching up because these guys are a hell of a lot more riffier and powerful than Tool, but not to take away from Tool in of itself. But I think where I'm getting the marriage or a little bit of like, it's kind of, is his melodies, what he's singing here is similar to what Maynard might do over something as busy as this. So the melody is really, really holding these one notes and down, 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 while I think that's where I'm getting a little bit of that vibe. And then some of those weird little turnarounds and odd little chord change, anomalies that come there. But it was kind of 5/4-ish, and then they went squared off. And when they squared off into the 4/4, that just a whole nother lift with the riff that they were playing there. But it's still oriented around one key, it seems like. So I don't know what key they're in right now, but because I'm not Rick Beato, I don't have that kind of ear training. But it's still kind of the genesis of everything that's happening is still coming from a single, the zero, the one note that they're hanging in, but they're pulling riffs from it and around it. So super cool, badass. Here we go. The end. What a great way to end an album. I'm so glad that they circle back to that da 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 da, that part that they established at the beginning. That is such a unique little melodic hook there that even in this last section, which was another expose in instrumental arrangements and compositions and I mean in composition and stuff, and the drumming and stuff. In my head, even though it wasn't present there, that was already burned into my the memory trigger. So at this very end, where there wasn't any of that da 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 da, excuse me, whatever that I can't remember the identical melody, but I actually heard that in my head as it was going, and maybe that happens to you guys too. Is that was such a memorable part for me of this the last Baron of this track is that, but like usual, what do you do for 13 minutes when you're trying to do a reaction? The only reaction I'm getting is sweating. Because there's so much to listen to. And you saw me doing this, and the drummer was doing some great cymbal work at the end, where it just sounds like he's, dig it, back it, dig it, back it, dig it. And, I love that, and especially when you can hear, I think I heard, while that's happening, his hi-hat foot is still holding this little, and to me, that is so badass. That is just so damn cool. All right, so let's continue on. 2 more songs to go. And what are we doing next right now? We are going to be doing, let me see, stand by here. Tread Lightly. I think, yeah, this is on an album from 2014. What's the name of this album? I can't see. Oh, More Around the Sun. Once More Around the Sun. Sorry, I had to look really close. I don't have my glasses. So Once More Around the Sun. This is from 2014. The song is Tread Lightly. So let's do this. All right. Okay, what I want to say about this one that I find so cool is, so now we're in 2014. Usually we'll hear a change a little bit in styles of engineering by virtue of, it depends on what producers they bring in. Very rare does a band stay with one producer through multiple projects or albums, but it's not unheard of course. Sometimes they'll even switch up the engineers. It depends if a producer brings in his own engineer, but it really sounds like like Mastodon really has a kung fu grip on the sound that they want with their engineering. And that opening, though, led, like, automatically I went, oh, okay, we're in 2014, because it was a little bit more dynamic. It kind of sounded like there was a little 12-string-ish action going in there, a multiple guitar kind of vibe going on there with some, a little more reverb, a little more dynamics to add a little bit of the ambience and stuff. But what I love about what I'm hearing in this, now this is a shorter track, so we got into the hook really fast, but what I love about the hook is that doom doom da one da do da do da da is that to me was the overpower on the hook than the melody aspect of it. So he changed his vocals. His melody changed through that passage that was played like twice. I think maybe they did 8 bars of that twice already in the song. But instead of the vocals being repetitive on the hook melody, sometimes that happens, right? You get used to, whatever it is. He changes it in the second time, but the doom doom wah doom doom wah da 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 just keeps hammering right in there. But the overall is, which really super cool for me, is that this is a little bit of a brighter mix, just slightly brighter of a mix. But they really keep true to the guitar tones and stuff like that. Like they haven't, like, so far, this is 2014. I heard they just released one this week or something too, but we're not going to listen to that one. But they really are really cognizant of their tones and stuff and keeping a consistency. And that's what I love, especially with the bass, so that's super badass. All right, let's go see what we got. Man, how I loved how they shifted up the arrangements, even though the riff, stayed in the same key and stuff like that. They kept on chunking up the arrangements and stuff. But when that was at, you saw me going nuts with the drummer. If you listen to that section, you go back and listen to that. Listen to his ghost notes. Before he gets into the 16ths with the hi-hats. As soon as he starts going, so he didn't emphasize, if at all, play any ghost notes to that, because now he had, to lift the arrangement by using the hi-hat. But that section before that, the ghost notes he were playing were so cool. They're back there, but also, you know, being an old drummer, you know, when I listen to drummers and stuff, I'm imagining them playing in front of me, you know, so those ghost notes are just fantastic. But I love that, you know, while the guitars are going, but that it's cut time. I just love that. I want to finish off this song by saying one thing about the vocals. What great background vocals. That's what really added a lot of richness for me on this track. Because like usual, these guys, you know, I don't think I've heard one section where they just play one whole note in a crunch chord and let it ring out, except for maybe a brief turnaround of something, you know. So they're very, very rhythmically always pushing the envelope on every song. So obviously the melody and the notes that he's singing are very important to give us some context. It's like that the one notes that are those notes that are hanging out and just giving us something to glide on, you know, through this intense arrangement. So those background vocals through that track were fantastic, and they added a different kind of unique kind of not an ethereal soul pulling, but the thing is that the harmonies that he sang kind of threw in like something that's like waiting to be resolved. Is it resolving? It's not resolving. It's resolving. You know, sometimes it's like a note that's being hung out there to kind of make you feel awkward or something, or hopeful or pensive. It depends on which notes they use, and then they'll relieve you of that tension by letting that note drop in the next change and stuff. But those background vocals to me, and especially in that last section, were very, very important to me. So, okay, hey, I can't believe it. We're down to one last song. Before we get to the song, I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you guys so much for your support. Once again, the executive producers, everybody at Patreon, thank you so much. You guys know how much you mean to me and stuff. And I, as far as like this whole process and all the fun stuff that I drop on that channel too. So I want to thank all of you guys. You guys want to support me, you know, the cup of coffee, check out the headsets, the shirt, the whole thing, you know, it's all right here. All right, guys, this is the last song for us. What do we got going on here? Stand by, let me just save this. Excusez-moi. The last song is 2021, not too far long ago, not too long far ago, not way back then. Let me see, once again, I didn't, what is this? Hushed and Grim. I'm sorry, I didn't wear my glasses. This is just so bobo. I'm usually pretty good about this, but no. So this is the last one. The song is More Than I Could Chew. And I got a lot of requests for this one. So guys, this is the last song. It's almost 7 minutes long. Let's kick back and enjoy this in the super prog way that Mastodon delivers to us. All right. Okay, I had to stop now because I know we're probably going to get into another verse. Now we can hear a really big difference in the engineering, can't we? So obviously, you know, starting off, what was the first one? 2004 or 2009? I forget which one I started with. And there was a slow change in the engineering, but this is obviously a stark difference from the very first one. Like you can hear like how the kick is engineered now. The kick is not so round and bold. It's got a little pop on the top of it and stuff. What a ballsy bass sound. What a gut punching in the throat bass sound this is. And oh, by the way, the last song I forgot to mention how mind-numbingly insanely engineered the bass was in the last song we just did as well, and the fact that you could just tell he was just pounding it out, you know, with, I don't know if he plays with a pick or if he's really super aggressive back by the bridge when he was doing the finger work on that last song. But this one, if you notice now, even the guitars now have a lot more of a chuggy, bolder bottom end on this. So now this has a lot more modern sounding engineering, and I don't know how they're, you know, sculpting their sounds, you know, with their amps and stuff, but we definitely sound a lot more present time with this. One thing that's so great about my journey with Mastodon is their ability to write the riffs they do, and it's kind of like it kind of reminds me of fly casting, and I'll tell you why. I know that sounds kind of weird, but you know, a lot of the stuff, especially riff-oriented music, starts with a root note, you know. And so there's going to be like that, in this case, dum, that is a root note, dun, 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 dun. You know, and for me, that root note is like when you're standing in your fly casting, and then you're going to go whoo, and you're going to go out there with the riff, and then come back. You know, and that kind of seesaw and that tug of war, these guys are so masterful at that. You know, and so anyhow, I just wanted to stop and just glam on the engineering. Let's keep going, and then I'll get a little more technical in a second. Okay, my last stop before the end of this song. Another thing I want to mention too is that the obvious change up in production now in 2021, in the vocals as well. This vocal sounds absolutely phenomenal, but now they're doing things like reverse effects on there to add some ethereal ambient vibe to it. While we got this big ballsy, you know, chuggy kind of playing that's going on there. There's a lot of muted, you know, in between what they're playing. But that one section that just played through, where you had, the two guitars doing their layers here, and that whole bottom from like, where is that coming from? Is that part of it? It's the bass. That bass sound is so like, I'm chasing that tone. I don't know how they got that. I got to listen to this track a few times to see how they shaped that. Because while that swimminess of that turnaround was happening there in that music section that we heard about a minute ago, so you had the guitars that were holding their arrangements down. But the bottom, that long, hard, heavy bottom sound, I'm thinking, because, when I think of the bass, it doesn't necessarily get treated to be so fat usually and so thick and rich sounding. The hell was that? Some guy buzzed by on a moped or something. And it was just so rich and so thick and just so ominous in here that I was listening to it. And with these headsets too, they're pretty, they're open, they're open ear, what they call back here. So I have some breathing room. So the bottoms really kind of wrap me up really well. And that was just badass. But, other things too is the positions of the toms and in the mix and stuff like that. So I'm sorry, I keep going back into the engineering and the mix aspect of it and the production. But, the engineers, you've heard me say this before, they become part of the band through every project, and they really do shape our experience, and, the unsung heroes, if you would, of the recording world. But anyhow, I just wanted to fire off on that. You can hear, also, the other thing is on the vocals, you can hear the kinds of, the reverb that they're using there is a lot more crispier and a lot more current, if you would, in technology. What a great way to end the show, man. That was such a badass track. It was a perfect kind of like, it's a kind of a way to reset and redial, if the way that just you guys gave me the list. This is just how it came together. So they did. Remember I was saying earlier that I have yet to hear these guys just hold one, let it ring out for a few measures or for at least 4 beats or something. And they did on this. This is what I loved about this track. The journey on this were patterns because this was more song-oriented than it was Theater of the Mind, which those other tracks were like 10 and 13 minutes. A lot of motion going on in here. This is a little more constructed as a song, so you have these patterns that kind of repeat, which is obvious where the hooks are and stuff like that. But the ethereal and the ambiance essence of this track was really, really super cool. Now, something that I need you guys to tell me, I don't know if there were any shifts in band members. So is this the same group of guys from the very first song I heard? because it sounds like it is. It does. It feels like it does, and it sounds like it does, especially the guitar solo. I was going, okay, so I kind of picked a few of the little licks that he did there that I heard in a couple of the other ones. Not identical, but all of us musicians, we have certain go-to patterns that we all love to do. And so, you know, you can say, oh, yeah, he kind of used a phrase like that in this other track and so on and so forth. And if it's the same singer, his voice sounded fantastic. If it is, phenomenal. Like, to hear a vocalist get better, better, and better, and more powerful as they go through in their years is always a joy to listen to. If this is a different singer, then forgive me, this isn't a history show. It's just listening to music and stuff. But anyhow, listen, guys, this was a fantastic journey. Thank you so much. Remember when I asked earlier, please let me know where you're listening to this. If this is like, you know, on your drive to work, on your way home, you're sitting on the beach, you're getting, you know, you're out on your porch sitting with your mason jar, getting baked on with cookies. You know, you're baking cookies, whatever that's what you're doing, or drinking a shit ton of coffee. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you so much for hanging out. If you're still here, you guys know what to do, right? Type in, I'm still here. All right, guys, take care of yourself. Have a killer day, week, rest of whatever. I'm out of here. All right.